I've received a lot of blowback for our Healthcare Triage episode in which we talked about the fact that, with evidence, exercise is not the key to weight loss. Diet is. Many of you can't wrap your head around the notion that adding physical activity and therefore burning more calories doesn't necessarily translate into results on the scale, much to my disappointment. Well, here we go again, because some of you also seem to believe that fitness devices like Fitbit, Vivosmart, or even your Apple Watch have to be helpful in losing weight. Unfortunately, evidence doesn't support that belief either. That's the topic of this week's Healthcare Triage. For some time, people have been trying to prove that devices like these succeed in promoting weight loss. A 2011 study compared 4 groups getting a mixture of behavioral weight loss programs and use of an armband that measured activity and energy expenditure. All the intervention groups lost weight, but those with behavioral programs and technology lost the most. The sample size of each group, fewer than 50 people, and the large dropout rate of the study should temper your enthusiasm, though. The sample was almost all female, and more than 3/4 of them had college degrees, so the results may not be entirely generalizable either. In 2015, another study, the PACE-LIFT trial, was also inconclusive. Researchers randomly assigned 250 people aged 60 to 75 to one of 2 groups. The first group received 4 physical activity consultations from primary care nurses over 3 months, a pedometer, and a physical activity diary. The other received usual care, which had none of those things. All patients were given accelerometers to measure their activity, although only the control group saw the results. 1 year later, those in the pedometer group were taking an average of about 600 more steps per day and had about 40 more minutes of activity a week. But it's hard in a trial like this to know how much of that was because of the pedometer and the feedback and how much was because of all the nursing visits, coaching, and everything that went along with that. What we needed was a large, well-designed study that truly teased out the contribution of wearable tech to weight loss programs. Last year, the results of at least such a study, the IDEA trial, were published. The trial took place at the University of Pittsburgh between 2010 and 2012, and it involved more than 470 adults between the ages of 18 and 35. All of them were put on a low-calorie diet, had group counseling sessions, and were advised to increase their physical activity. 6 months into the intervention, all were given telephone counseling sessions, text messaging prompts, and study materials online. At that time, though, half were also given wearable tech devices that monitored their activity and connected to a website to help provide feedback. All participants were followed for 18 more months. At the end of the 2 years, which is pretty long for a weight loss study, those without access to the wearable technology lost an average of 13 pounds. Those with the wearable tech lost an average of 7.7 pounds. It's hard for many of you to accept, so I'm going to state those results again. Those people who used the wearable tech for 18 months lost significantly less weight than those who didn't. Of course, this isn't a perfect trial, and the fact that the arm tech is on an armband and not on the wrist doesn't make it totally applicable to what you might wear today, but we have to accept what we have, and this is the evidence to date. You also may rightfully point out that the primary reason to wear these devices isn't to lose weight, it's to be more active. But even in this respect, it didn't work nearly as well as we might hope. In the IDEA trial, those who employed the technology were no more physically active than those who didn't. They also weren't more fit. Many new technologies and dietary supplements and new diets are sold to the public and you with little actual research behind them. Wearable technology to encourage fitness is no different. Somehow, in the past few years, it's become collectively understood that we need to take 10,000 steps per day. But there's no magic behind that number. There's no reason to believe that hitting that arbitrary goal is somehow life-changing. Exercise is worthwhile for its own sake. Of course, many people can enjoy using wearable tech without tying it to weight loss goals. I've owned a Fitbit, a Nike Fuel Band, and an Apple Watch, and you've seen me wear them on lots of episodes. I still wear the watch because I like many of its features. When I first bought it, I liked how it tracked my daily 30 minutes of activity and reminded me to stand up every so often. But I realized over time that I didn't really need it. After some months, getting 30 minutes of activity a day, which is the recommended amount, you should have watched that video, became part of my routine. I learned to be more mobile and less sedentary. I didn't need the precision or the reminders anymore. I wear this today because it's a good watch and I get my text messages on it. It's possible that these devices help me make physical activity part of my regular routine. It's possible that they provided a benefit. But my experience is just an anecdote, and there's no counterfactual to help figure out whether I'd have become more active without the devices. For that, we'd need a study. The ones that exist, like the IDEA trial, argue that these devices don't make people exercise more. They don't seem to hurt though. Other than costing money, there's no harm in seeing if it might improve your activity over time. But if your goal is weight loss, then you might think twice about using such a device. The evidence suggests you may do better without one. Healthcare Triage is supported in part by viewers like you through Patreon.com, a service that allows you to support the show through a monthly donation. Your support makes this show bigger and better. We'd especially like to thank our research associates Joe Sevitz and Jonathan Dunn, and of course our Surgeon Admiral Sam. Thanks Joe, Jonathan, and Sam. More information can be found at patreon.com/healthcaretriage.